So she was like, I never expected you to get off of your medication. I never expected you to especially make the recovery that you did, or as quickly as you did, like not in 2 years. She was like maybe in a couple, like several years or something like that. She was like, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it.
Welcome to the How I Healed It podcast. Here at How I Healed It, we get to hear stories from those who have healed their bodies from the unhealable through alternative methods and the experts who are passionate about whole body health and healing. As I have been on my own healing journey, I have found that the number one thing that has kept me going is learning from others who have gone before me. I believe we can gain nuggets of wisdom from each healing story that we hear. Thanks in advance for subscribing to our podcast so we can continue to bring these amazing stories. I'm your host, Plantfully Megan. Let's dive in. Hey guys, it's Megan and welcome to the How I Healed It podcast. Today I get the honor of interviewing Craig Andrianos. Is that it? Andrianos?
Actually, so before my ancestors came over from Greece, it was Andrianopolis. So then they changed it to, they changed it to Andrianos to try to make it easier.
Okay,
yeah.
Andrianos. Okay, let's try that one more time. Andrianos. Today I get the honor of interviewing Craig Andrianos about his story of healing from CIDP, a disease that affected his ability to walk. He was told if he wanted to be able to walk again, he would be on medication for the rest of his life. But by following a vegan diet, he will officially be medication-free for over a decade this August 2024. You may have already seen him on YouTube, known as No Egg Craig, as he has been sharing his healing journey and recipes to encourage others since 2014. Craig, I'm so excited to have you on today.
I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Stoked to dive into your story. I would love to just dive right in and hear a little bit more about CIDP, what it is, and how you found out you were diagnosed, and then how you ended up going vegan in an effort to heal your body.
Yeah. So I guess to start off, I'll talk about what CIDP is. It stands for Chronic Inflammatory Demyelinating Polyneuropathy. People are usually more familiar with Guillain-Barré syndrome, or MS. It's kind of like the long form version of Guillain-Barré syndrome, and it's also sort of like MS for the peripheral nervous system instead of the central nervous system. So basically, you have an autoimmune disease that just starts attacking your own nervous system, starts slowly eating away the fatty coating of the nerves called myelin. Once that starts getting eroded, you start losing like your sensations as far as like how things feel on like your fingertips or just all over your body. You start to just have a lot of weakness, just like any sort of sensory and motor nerve function just really starts to decrease slowly over time. When I first realized what was going on, I was getting ready for indoor track when I was in college, and I just started getting like slowly like weaker and weaker and just slower, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. I started just getting like a bunch of tests done. Like we just got a lot of tests that a lot of typical runners would get, because a lot of times you get tested for like anemia. You're like, oh, maybe I'm just getting slower and weaker because I'm anemic. That wasn't the case. I got tested for like different vitamins and mineral deficiencies. Everything came up normal. And actually that was part of like probably the worst part is like when everything was coming up normal and healthy, because you're like, I know something is wrong, but you're getting all the signals that you're healthy. So that's very frustrating. And I even had some people asking me like, they're well-meaning friends and stuff asking like, maybe is it like just in your head? And I was like, no, I feel it. Like I feel it.
Totally.
That's definitely not my head. So I just started getting weaker and weaker. It just kept getting worse and worse. And I did notice like when I would put my hands like in the dryer to get clothes out, my hands would go like extra numb for like a period of time. Yeah. And then when I told my neurologist that, because eventually we were like, okay, it's clearly something neurological, because it's not just getting weaker. It's also my sensations in my hands. So that would lead anybody to think, okay, it's probably something neurological. So we did eventually find a neurologist. Initially, he diagnosed me with something called Guillain-Barré syndrome. And he told me that this is like the most mild case he'd ever seen, because at that point I was just having some difficulty walking, but I could still kind of do it. Like my feet and legs just like felt heavy. I couldn't run, obviously, or I'd like trip and fall. So I was just like very clumsy. But he was like, this is the most mild case I've ever seen. You should actually just get better over time. It'll just correct itself. You don't even need any medication. I was like, that's great, because GBS is a pretty short-term illness. Usually it's so severe that you're just completely paralyzed. Like you can't even breathe. You might have to be on like a ventilator, or maybe you're just paralyzed from like the waist down or something. But like it gets like very severe, but it's very short-lived usually. So because of the nature of GBS being short-lived, he's like, it should just correct itself. So I was like, hey, I would love to have the most mild form this doctor's ever seen. That sounds great. And then I just took the semester off from college, partially so that I could just be home, just relearning how to walk and stuff. And then also because I'd heard that some people with Guillain-Barré syndrome can be completely paralyzed. I was always like going to bed with the fear that like I might wake up just completely paralyzed.
Totally.
Yeah. So like I would go to bed and like the first thing I would do in the morning, just like move my arms and legs, like to make sure I didn't become paralyzed during the night. Because like, say I'm like so paralyzed that like I can't talk or like let anybody know and I can't breathe, then, there I'm just dying in my bed. So
Totally.
so I was like, I want to be like with my family, live in in a house with other people in case I do need something. That never happened, because eventually we were to find out that it's not GBS.
Okay.
So I did take that semester off partially because of that, and also partially because of part of the reason, the way that I got diagnosed was through a spinal tap, and the spinal tap showed that I had my cerebral spinal fluid levels like it was like 4 times what they should have been. So like, okay, this is clearly Guillain-Barré syndrome. So
they doubled down still at that point with the
well, and I mean you'll understand why in just a second. Too, like, but because that is like a telltale sign of Guillain-Barré syndrome. So they're like, okay, this is definitely what it is. We know what it is. So I had a complication with the spinal tap though, where I had something. It was just like it was kind of like my cerebral spinal column, like it didn't close up. So I had like internal leakage. So I had something called spinal headaches, which are like really, really, really painful headaches unless you're laying down or your head is like somehow below your spine. But the second your head goes above your spine, it's like excruciating headaches. So I was literally bedridden. Like I couldn't even sit up for like a week. And that was like literally the first week of school. So, so I was just like, okay, well, I could be paralyzed at any moment. I have to be laying down for this whole week of the start of school. I was just like, let's just take this semester off of school and I'll just come back next semester. So during that semester, I decided to do something with my life. And I was just volunteer coaching the track and field team at my high school. And I just kept getting like slowly like weaker and weaker. And everyone around me was like, they would sometimes be like, maybe you look a little bit like worse today. And I was like, oh no, I did too much yesterday, or oh, it's too cold today, or it's hot today, or like I would come up with excuses. But after a while, it was just like too much to ignore. And I eventually started doing some research of my own through Google and YouTube, and I found out that what I actually had was not Guillain-Barré syndrome, but it was actually chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. So I sent an email to my neurologist. He got me in the next day, and then he was like, yes, you actually have CIDP, not GBS.
Wow. So you figured out your own diagnosis.
Yeah, through YouTube. Which is partially why I started a YouTube channel. Because I knew how influential and helpful it was in my life. And I just wanted to help other people the way that helped me. So, so I got diagnosed. And then I think he felt bad because he didn't give me the treatment that I needed. But they're very, very similar diseases. And if you test positive for the CIDP, you test positive for GBS. And it's just up to the doctor to differentiate the two. So that's why it seemed like it could be GBS, but really it was CIDP, which did need treatment. So I was on something called IVIG and prednisone. And if your viewers have autoimmune diseases, they're probably somewhat familiar with at least one, or if not both of those. So prednisone is just like an anti-inflammatory hormone that they put you on for a little bit. And well, for me, it was like a year and a half. And then for IVIG, that's donor antibodies pretty much. And I would just get infused with those. Like in the beginning, it was like once a week. And it was a very, very expensive treatment. It was like $7,000 a treatment. And like, so we had high deductible insurance. So after like two visits, everything for the rest of the year was free, which is good. My mom was like, we're getting everything done medical this year. Kara, you got your bunion surgery. We're knocking everything out while it's free.
Let's go.
So silver lining, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so by the time that I started getting IVIG though, I was in a wheelchair. Like I was just paralyzed. Like I had to like, I had forearm crutches that like I could sort of hobble around the house, like a little bit, like to go to the bathroom, to get up. Most of the time I was like sitting or laying down though, because it was like just so exhausting just to go to the bathroom. And then just sit back down. But yeah, I would, my friends would like push me in a wheelchair to like go to the movies or, whatever we were doing. I was still, doing my best to have like a pretty active social life, despite all that. But yeah, so it took about 6 weeks for it to start initially working, the treatment, but it did actually start working. But that was probably like the hardest part, because I was like, I was at that point, I was going to physical therapy twice a week. I was getting my treatment. We were trying to change my diet, and I was like, I don't know what else to do, and I'm only getting worse. But after about 6 weeks, because it does take a little bit for it to kick in, after about 6 weeks, I actually started slowly getting better. And that was awesome. I was very, very excited, very happy about that. Just to be able to walk again, or slowly relearn, sort of.
Yeah, because you never picture your 20s being in a wheelchair.
No, because before that, I was running like, I considered myself like a low mileage runner, and I was still running like 50 miles a week. And like, so going from that to not being able to use your legs, like my calf muscles were my favorite muscle on my body, and now they're very atrophied, yeah, so I started getting the treatment, and then I knew that I had to change my diet in some way, because I knew that diet was somehow related. I tried a bunch of different diets. I tried like an anti-inflammatory diet, which is confusing, and I just had to sort of memorize what I could and couldn't eat, and it didn't really make sense. I just had to memorize stuff that didn't make sense. So I didn't like that. I tried paleo. I tried the Walls diet, which are like similar. And then eventually I found a video. Do you know who Fully Raw Christina is?
Yes.
You do? Okay. So
yeah,
I found a video of hers, because I was just looking up diets, and it was just like what a raw vegan eats in a day. And I saw her video, and the first time I saw it, I was like, there's no way she's getting enough calories. There's no way she's getting enough protein. This is stupid. It's just, she's a crazy woman. And then I X'd out of it. I was like, what a nut. And then the next day, literally the next day, for some reason, I just found myself watching it again, but I had a way different mindset. It was like, no, like this seems pretty cool. Like I think I want to try this. Like I just want to eat fruits and vegetables. Like that sounds awesome. Yeah, I just made the decision like right then and there. I was like, I'm gonna try raw vegan, because I tried like a bunch of other diets. It didn't really seem to do anything. So I was like, I've got nothing to lose by trying this thing. And I did really like, I think what really drew me into it is because it was very black and white. It was like raw fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. That's it. There's really no gray areas or anything. Like with the anti-inflammatory diet, it's like, well, you can eat this, but not that. And I don't know why, but you,
yeah.
So I really was drawn to like the black and whiteness of it. And that was also through YouTube that I found that video. So I just started eating just fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. And within about 2 weeks, all my symptoms from prednisone went away, which, yeah. And I was still on, I think like 40 milligrams. And like 40 milligrams is not nothing.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So yeah, because I still had like a very like round moon face from the prednisone. I still had like some acne. I didn't have very good, like I had like insomnia. And within 2 weeks, like all went away. And I think it was just because my diet was like so low in sodium, because like I was already eating a relatively low sodium diet, but like when you're only eating like fruits and vegetables, pretty much, your sodium level is going to be shockingly low.
Totally. That alone is really remarkable, just because I personally know 2 people who were on high dose prednisone for long periods of time for different reasons. And one of the guys, he still has that moon face, and it's been decades since he was on it. And so sometimes the side effects can be long-term. So that's really incredible that you immediately saw that shift whenever you started going raw vegan.
Yeah. And I feel like it was also about 2 weeks that I just felt anecdotally that like I was just recovering faster.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Like I couldn't place exactly what it was, but I was like, I feel like I'm just relearning how to walk faster than I was before. And yeah, like there's really no way for me to prove that. I just felt that, and that just gave me more motivation to eat that way, because I know when a lot of people first go vegan, it's probably like really hard for them to go vegan, but I just found it like shockingly easy because I had such a good motivation, and the way I saw it was like every single meal that I had was like another step towards being able to walk without medication. And like if I saw it differently, I think it probably would have been very difficult for me to do. Like if I were eating meat and dairy like right now, and I just wanted to go vegan like for athletic reasons or something, like I think it would be really hard for me to do. I am really grateful that I had like a really good motivation to go vegan.
Yeah, I've found that to be the case for myself as well, because I think, oh goodness, I don't know how many years ago, probably 10 years ago, whenever Forks Over Knives first came out, I watched that, and I had already been diagnosed with endometriosis, and I'd read a book by a gal, I think it's Carolyn Leverett or Carolyn Leaf or something like that. She had healed stage 4 endometriosis going plant-based, but I was living in Texas at the time, and so I remember going to the grocery store like, okay, I'm gonna eat only fruits and vegetables and beans and grains. And I mean, I just had so no grid. I went through the grocery store and I was just like, I'll die. Like, I'm going to die if like, how do you not eat meat and dairy? Like, I just had no grid for it. And so, and the motivating factor wasn't that strong because my symptoms weren't horrible. I had a surgery and I was like doing better. So it was just like, oh, okay, whatever. I tried the vegan thing for like less than 6 months, did a terrible job at it. I was just hungry all the time.
Yeah.
And then just went back to eating normal again. But then when the resurgence of the disease for me happened, and it was stage 4, and they're saying basically, surgery is your only option, and it was affecting our fertility, all of that, then it was easy. All of a sudden, the motivating factor became really strong, and it was really easy. And so I think there's something to be said about, when you're scared out of your mind, you make things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom quit smoking cigarettes when she found out that she was pregnant with her first kid. Just cold turkey. Didn't even think about it. She just did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think if someone just said, "Oh, you should just stop," she probably would have found it really difficult. But she just said she just imagined like a baby smoking a cigarette and just couldn't do it. So.
Yeah, and then it's over. Then then you're motivated and you just do what you got to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you found Fully Raw Christina. You started eating raw vegan. It sounds like raw vegan, and then what was going on in your healing journey at that point? So they're still telling you are going to be on medication for the rest of your life, and you're starting to eat this way and starting to see gains in your body.
Yeah. So at this point, my doctors did tell me like you're only giving me prednisone for like a little bit, so that was not going to be the life-term disease or life-term medication. Thank God. The IVIG was, which didn't really have that bad of symptoms. Honestly, it was just crazy expensive. And it was just it would not lead to a very spontaneous life because they're like, oh, every 6 weeks I have to make sure that I'm, here. I can't like go travel to Italy or something if I want to, yeah, so I knew I wanted to get off of it. And little by little, it's like every 6 weeks, my neurologist would let me choose either I could lower my dosage of prednisone or I could space out my IVIG like another week because we didn't want to change too many things at once, but we just wanted to like lower everything. Eventually I got completely off of prednisone. And I was still doing fine. I was still like slowly gaining weight. I was gaining some muscle. I was able to like go for runs and stuff. And then we got to a certain point where like I could go more than 6 weeks without my IVIG. And then that's when I had like my last meeting with my neurologist. And she was like, if you can go 6 weeks without your IVIG, you probably just don't need it anymore. So she was like, I never expected you to get off of your medication. I never expected you to especially make the recovery that you did or as quickly as you did, like not in 2 years. She was like maybe in several years or something like that. She was like, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. She was like, I think she knew that I was raw vegan. She was like, I don't understand it, but just, I like you, but I don't want to see you anymore,
Cool. So then did you continue raw vegan from that point? And then what did your activity levels look like as you're gaining everything back in your lifestyle?
Yeah. So, I I think I started actually incorporating some cooked food when I was still on the medication. And when I started incorporating some cooked food, I was like, oh no, like, am I going to start slowly become paralyzed again? I was fine. And then I was like, so I was still gluten free at the time. And then I ate something with gluten and I was like, is it going to be okay? And it was fine because I don't have celiac disease. So, and, um, and now like I will sometimes go like I generally eat like pretty healthy, although I really only make videos and post stuff of the stuff that I eat unhealthy because people already know that vegan, like the salads are vegan and fruit is vegan, so like I don't show that I have like a pile of fruit on my table. Like a lot of the people who watch my videos will think that I just eat a bunch of junk food, just because that's like I just find it's the most interesting stuff. But I generally eat like pretty healthy though. Unhealthy stuff like Oreos and stuff like that, and I was still actually fine. So it seems like for me at least, like just being vegan has been like really helpful. But as far as activity levels, like I started trying to get back into running because I went to college and I was hoping to be on the college running team, like the running teams like cross country and track and stuff like that. As like most of my athletic career was just running, so I really had a background in that, and I want to get back to that. But I did find that I started getting some hip pain. I think it was just because my lower legs are still actually to this day very weak, just because I do have some permanent nerve damage. Because if you have myelin nerve damage, that can grow back. But if you have axonal nerve damage, which is under the myelin, that won't grow back. It's like the difference between chopping off your fingernail and chopping off your fingertip. Like no matter what diet you eat, that fingertip is not coming back.
Yes, 100%.
So I was like, okay, so I think it's like a lot of weakness. So I started getting more into lifting. So then I got into lifting for a little bit, and then I was able to run again without any sort of pain. I was mostly focused on running for another couple of years because I wanted to be a camp counselor at a running camp that I used to be at, like when I was a camper and when I was a counselor before I was sick. And so I did that for a couple of years, and then eventually I was like, you know what, I kind of want to get more into just lifting. So I kind of focused more on lifting. This was like back a little bit before the pandemic. I was mostly focused on, it was like right around the time of the pandemic when I mostly decided I wanted to get mostly into lifting. And then I've been doing that for a couple of years. And then recently, like 2 weeks ago, I decided I kind of wanted to change a little bit. Instead of like just doing lifting, I decided I kind of want to get more into like calisthenic based stuff. So I feel it just like seems more fun. And I guess 2 years ago, I did a sprint triathlon, and I was thinking about doing another one this coming summer. So I just have a lot of athletic goals that I want to do.
That's awesome. That is so cool. So what does a day in the life of your diet look like these days for you as you've transitioned to maybe a more cooked foods diet and get to have some of the fun vegan foods? What does it look like for you on a day-to-day?
So because even though I am trying to do a little bit more calisthenics, I am still trying to like, hold on to like a lot of muscle while I'm doing that. So I try to aim for like 150 grams of protein or so a day. So I'll either have like oatmeal with some protein powder in it, or I have like a high protein cereal that one of my followers told me about that I really been liking that one. And I think later I'll probably have a salad because I have some romaine lettuce that needs to be eaten. Yesterday, my friend bought me some Ethiopian food, so I had a bunch of Ethiopian food for lunch. I mean, I make like some flatbread pizza sometimes, and I'll usually do like a homemade cashew cheese that I make. It's just like sprinkled. You may probably heard of like this recipe before. It's just like cashews, nutritional yeast, salt, and garlic powder. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like very basic
simple
stuff.
And easy.
Yeah.
But yummy. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's mostly cashews and nutritional yeast pretty much. But I'll just do like, some roasted red peppers and like maybe some pineapple. I love pineapple on pizza. I know it's very polarizing.
Yeah. So divisive.
And then I usually will use that cheese, or I've recently been liking Miyoko's liquid cheese. Because that one it's like mostly cashews. I looked at the ingredients. There are really not that many bad guys. I don't think anyway. I mean, it's relatively high sodium, but I'm sweating a lot when I'm doing a lot of activities. So.
Totally. Yeah. I've tried that one before too, and it really does bubble and kind of turn into like a cheese pizza, which is really awesome. I do think, I mean, depending on people's healing journey and where they're at, it can be fun and easy to incorporate some of the more fun vegan foods in, especially as you're transitioning. I find that super helpful. But like you said, it also depends on what your motivating factor is. Like when you're looking at not being able to walk, then going a little bit more extreme might seem more easy to take on than just a transitional vegan diet. So that's really neat. What was it like for you? So this was probably 2014 that all this was going on. Is that right? Around that time? So vegan and plant-based, especially for, I would say, especially for guys at the time, I feel like was not the cool hip thing to do. What was that like for you, especially as somebody who was interested in working out, exercising, running, to wrap your mind around the protein side of things? I think that's still something that I get a lot of questions about, is how do you get enough protein? How do you feel satiated? What was that transition like for you back then? That was before Game Changers, you know?
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen Game Changers. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Documentary.
Yeah, actually, I have multiple vegan friends now who have gone vegan because of Game Changers. So it's interesting that every new documentary changes other people. Like I have a friend actually who very recently has decided to try being vegan from the new Netflix documentary that came out. It's like We Are What We Eat or something like that, or You Are What You Eat.
Is that the twin study one that just came out?
Yeah. I think I watched like the first 2 episodes. I gotta watch more.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't know any vegans at all at the time. And I mean, it would have been nice to be able to like know some other vegans, but it also didn't really deter me because like, I guess the way I've always been someone who just kind of like, if I want to do something, I just go do it. Or like, I guess I don't know, like there's always an example that I think about is like when I was in high school, one of the kids who was on the track team, he did the math and he found out that we could break the school record for the sprint medley relay, but it was like really late in the season. There was only one more meet where they would even have the SMR, and it was too late to sign up. So I was like, too late to sign up. I was like, I'll just email the race director and ask if we could do it. I'll explain that we need to do this to get the school record. And then he was like, of course, we'll let you guys do that. And then I just told our coach, I was like, hey, can we go to this meet? And he was like, yeah, okay. And then we went and we got school record. Cause I just like thinking like, what do I have to do to accomplish my goal? And even if it seems unconventional, just go and do it. You know, I didn't really care that there wasn't anyone else who was already, I mean, there already were other people doing it. So I'm not like, it's not like I was a pioneer and like going vegan or something. There's already millions of other vegans.
But in your area.
Yeah. Like I didn't know anyone. So it would have been nice, but it also like didn't really deter me at all. Cause I'd already experienced success with it. So if I'd gone from being in a wheelchair to being able to run again, like that was all the proof that I needed, you know? And at the time I'd also read, the 80-10-10 diet by, Doug Graham. And in that one, he just talked about like how like you don't need as much protein as you need, which I think is true for people who are just trying to live their life. But if you are trying to gain muscle, there is actually like a lot of evidence that you are going to be better off consuming like higher amounts of protein. Like if I change my goals to not be muscle based, then I would probably just eat, you know, more carbs to fuel whatever it is I'm doing.
Yeah, but if you're going for those gains, and there's so many vegan bodybuilders and stuff these days. And so, you know, they post like Namani Delgado, he posts a lot about the things that he eats in a day. And it's really simple, but I think a lot of people think, oh, vegans can't, I think it's still a common misconception is vegans can't gain muscle. But there's so many bodybuilders and different people who share, this is what you eat. And it really isn't that hard to get that much protein in. I think modern society associates protein with meat or with dairy. You just don't associate it with vegetables or beans or grains at all. But there's so much protein in all of those things and in really good proportions as well. So it's not as hard as you think to get it all in, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So for somebody who might be facing a diagnosis like what you had with CIDP, what are some words of encouragement or even some advice you might give them on their journey as they're just starting out?
Yeah, I do think that with pretty much any disease, having a positive mindset is actually really helpful because I do definitely believe in the placebo and the nocebo effect. So I think probably part of the reason why the medication worked for me was because I was very excited to get it. Every time I got it, I was like, this is just another step closer to like me being able to walk again. And I also like, obviously, like using Western medicine, like when it's available, like use it. Don't I would say definitely don't shy away from it, especially like with my specific disease. I don't know that just going vegan, I actually don't think that just going vegan would have helped me. I think I probably needed the Western medication and then could use like my diet to help me get off of the medication. But using it initially, like to jumpstart it, I think was crucial. So I think using whatever medication you have available and then trying to use diet and lifestyle to get off of it would be best. I mean, there are some diseases where like you just can't get off of it. Like if you're diagnosed with like type 1 diabetes, you have to take insulin the rest of your life. There's
Yeah,
really no way around that.
absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, even the master diabetes guys, I don't know if you follow them. They have a book on it, but they're both type 1 diabetics, and they are, one of them for sure is raw vegan. I think both of them
Robbie
are.
Barbero.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
raw vegan. And I mean, if you haven't looked into their story, it's really good. I'll put that in the show notes, but he still is on medication. So you're right. I mean, the reality is thank God for Western medication. Like we need it in scenarios. And then thank God for great nutrition to help us not have to be dependent on it if at all possible. And so that's what you did. And that's what I want this podcast to be about, is that balance between both. You know, I think bridging the gap is really important, not villainizing one camp or the other, but utilizing all the tools that are available to us so that we can heal our bodies, which is really cool. But let's touch on sleep and getting enough rest. I know that's a huge part of a healing journey, and I know it's something you're really passionate about. So do you have any words of wisdom when it comes to getting good rest and good sleep?
Yeah. And so I do think that obviously diet has definitely a big role in how you recover from any disease. Obviously nutrition. I do also think that like trying your best, which is not always possible, but trying your best to get good sleep and to lower your stress levels, you know, as much as you can, is definitely for the best for any sort of recovery. I I really like a lot of the protocols that like Andrew Huberman has come up with. I'm sure you're familiar with him. Yeah. It's like, cause he has just a lot of very behavioral based things. It's not like buy this supplement or something like that, which I do have a supplement that I really like. But it's just like magnesium, which is like very popular these days. It's got like L-theanine and apigenin in it. But like those, it's just like something I just got on Amazon. So I do like that, but just like getting sun early in the morning can like really help start your circadian rhythm so you can fall asleep earlier, not looking at your phone very late. Sometimes I do that. I try not to. I try to like have my phone charged in my kitchen while I sleep, not in the kitchen. So
Yeah.
But yeah, I've found that it just helps like with just recovering from anything, whether it's like an actual disease or if it's just athletic stuff or just like thinking throughout the day. Like I just think a lot clearer when I have like a really good night's sleep. So that I think I did try to also make sure that I was sleeping well when I was recovering from my autoimmune disease, because I just felt like every time that I had a really good night's sleep, I just imagined my nerves just like getting like that much more healthy, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's
uh,
awesome. Which is kind of goes into visualization. Really, it sounds like you're doing, you know, maybe unconsciously even doing those visualization exercises where it's like, okay, this is what's happening. My body's healing when I do this, my body's healing, and when I do this, my body's healing, which is a huge deal.
yeah, like I was trying to always like, I sort of got like a relentless like optimism from my mom. We're both just like threateningly optimistic about everything. Like I don't even have to like think about it. It's just like if something negative happens, my mind just automatically goes to like whatever the positive thing is. And I'm very grateful that I inherited that from my mom,
Yeah,
because
that's
not all my
awesome.
siblings are like that. um, but yeah, I think that was just I know I already said it before, but I just really think that's like very very helpful. And I think it probably also helps like keep my stress low too, just because I'm always thinking like, okay, well this happened, but you know, it's a good thing because this happened because of it.
That is something I feel like I see as I mean, in these healing stories, there's just threads of similarities and positivity and working on managing stress in a healthy way and shifting your mindset to reframe things as positive. My husband and I were even doing that last night. I have a dental appointment coming up, and I was like, I'm stressing about the dental appointment. And he's just like, just look at it as like another piece of information that you need to move forward, like reframing things from even stuff that feels like a failure, reframe that to be positive. You know what I mean? Where it's like, hey, like this is actually giving us more information to get where we want to go. And it's not always easy for people. It is a practice that you have to develop in your mind. And so that's really awesome. And it sounds like it was your superpower, and what a gift from your mom to get that, especially with the journey that you had to walk out. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, like even when I was paralyzed, I just would automatically just think like, at least I can still see and I can hear, and I have friends and family who love me. I have a roof over my head. I know where my next meal is coming from. I have people who, even though I'm paralyzed and can't make that meal, like they can make it for me and bring it to me. And like, you know, like I had so many things to be grateful for. It even just like having the first 19 years of my life with very well functioning legs, I would just feel like an asshole if I was like complaining about not being able to use my legs now after having it for like 19 years of working legs, for like someone who never was able to use their legs. You know, and that's just how I always felt. Yeah, it's just part of just being positive all the time. Yeah, it's just like how you see stuff.
Yeah, that's so good. That is a huge deal. So then on your journey, I know you kind of started documenting it on YouTube kind of early. And was that kind of I think you said that watching YouTube was a real encouragement for you. So is that why you've been able to share so much on YouTube yourself?
Yeah. So when I first got diagnosed, this is before I realized what I actually had. So when I first got diagnosed, I went on YouTube, typed in Guillain-Barré story or something like that, and there was almost no videos. There's like a handful of videos on all of YouTube. So I would just remember thinking to myself, okay, when I am recovered, I'm going to make an entire YouTube channel so that then when somebody gets diagnosed with it, they can just come to my YouTube channel. They have a whole library. They're struggling with which video to start with because there's so many. That was my goal. And then along the way, I used YouTube to help diagnose myself. So I was like, okay, so I know that YouTube can be beneficial for like at least like diagnosing yourself. And then I also use YouTube to help change my diet, which ended up being like one of the most influential changes as far as like my recovery goes. So I was like, okay, I first went on YouTube and there was no videos about my autoimmune disease. Then I went on YouTube and I found one of the very few videos about a similar disease, which was what I actually had. And then I found another video on YouTube that helped me with my diet. So I was like, okay, so this, like, I just need to give back to YouTube the way that YouTube gave to me. So that's how I started. That's how I started my YouTube channel. And along the way, I just realized like I just like making videos. Like it was just fun. Like I liked getting like a camera and editing and like being creative and stuff like that. I bought like the whole Adobe suite and I started messing around with like Photoshop and Lightroom and all that stuff. So it was just like fun. So I just kept doing that. Eventually I was like, okay, I kind of have run out of videos to make for CIDP because there's only so many people who have it, only so many people looking for it. Most of the people who have it are older. I was one of the few very young people who had it. So I feel like a lot of the older people were less likely to go on social media of any kind to find anything. Yeah. So then I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just make videos about veganism. And after a while, I made videos about how my parents make candy because they're candy makers. And then I found a lot more success with that because I think there's more people on YouTube looking for how to make candy than there is, you know,
how
to
to
just
heal
eat
your
plants.
body. Yeah.
Yeah. So that actually blew up, and I'm actually in the house that I grew up in. And the basement is where they used to make the candy. The first floor is where they sold it, and then the second floor is up here is where we lived. And I bought the house for my parents, and then now they have like their own proper storefront because the YouTube channel blew up so much that now they're able to just like have their own storefront, which is what my dad wanted for like the past 40 years. He finally got it at the age of like 64. He finally had his success that he dreamed about.
Oh, that's so amazing.
Yeah. So I'm in my childhood house right now, and like my mom always says that like me getting sick was the best thing that ever happened to our family, just because you know what happened afterwards. Like it was like I didn't just take it laying down. I decided to like fight back. I decided to like give back. And from giving back, I actually received a lot, as far as just like be able to help my family. I'm able to help others who have an autoimmune disease, or just who want to go vegan in general, whether it's like for weight loss or whatever, or maybe the ethical reasons. But yeah, I feel like I've received a lot from all the stuff they gave out.
That is so awesome. I love that. I think that's a beautiful example of even making the best out of a hard situation, and then all the blessings that come. And I've heard that a lot with cancer survivors, where they're like, getting cancer was one of the best things that ever happened to me because it completely changed my life, and all for the better. And so as long as we can keep our minds positive and work towards it, and that is so cool. And what a heritage you got with your family. That sounds like ideal, like so awesome.
And now my whole family's vegan too.
Wow, that is so awesome. That's so cool.
And like my dad, one day he actually passed out because he was on low blood pressure medication, but because of the diet he had low blood pressure. So then he was awesome. So like so then we went to the hospital. They were like, there's nothing wrong with you. And then he stopped taking his blood pressure medication and he was fine. Like he had normal blood pressure. So we're like, oh, so it'd be like if I have normal blood pressure, it'd be like if I were to take it, I'd just be passing out just trying to sit up,
Heck yeah, because your blood pressure would go too low.
Yeah, exactly. So he got off his medication too for blood pressure.
Wow.
So yeah, like the whole family's just healthier now.
It's so cool. That is so awesome. And you can do meal shares, and it's like easy. It's so great when you have supportive family.
Yeah, like we had a Super Bowl party last night, and we just like it was all vegan. And I have like a bunch of vegan friends around here. We throw potlucks and vegan parties and stuff all the time. Or like we'll all like travel to Vegandale together and stuff. So
heck yeah, that's awesome.
It's really fun. Yeah, I also like make some videos on my channel about like just how to meet other vegans, because I'm a very extroverted person, so I have no problem just like if I see someone like holding like a vegan pizza in the store, I'll go up to them and talk to them about it. So
awesome.
I've gotten people's numbers and invited them to potlucks that way, like just at the grocery store.
Oh, so cool. What's vegan? You said Vegandale?
Yeah, vegan. So they're just like really, really, really big festivals.
Cool.
Every year they have them. They have them in New York City, Toronto, Chicago, LA, Dallas, and Miami, I think.
Oh, cool.
But they're just huge vegan festivals. They're all very food based. So it's a lot of junk food, but it's very fun. And it's just like a really, really cool event. The one for Chicago this year, it might be a couple other ones, but the one for Chicago this year, I think is gonna be like a 2-day event because it's like so big. So I'm
that's
very
so
much looking forward to that one. Yeah.
What are some words of advice for anybody who's adopted a plant-based or vegan lifestyle right now and they are feeling lonely? What are some of the things that you would say to help connect them into some community?
I think definitely using your online resources is actually really helpful. Like trying to like search local hashtags on like Instagram, or if you want to do TikTok or whatever. I would say look on YouTube too for like someone who is just like, if you live in like Syracuse, like I was a very small city, I could probably type in like best vegan restaurants in Syracuse. Someone's probably made a video about it in Syracuse. And then maybe you find their Instagram, just like DM them like, hey, I'm vegan too. Like, you want to hang out? Like I just found like just DMing people. And then, like I said, like I have no problem going up to talking to strangers. I know a lot of other people do have a problem with that. So like I would say working up to being able to do that. But a lot of times, like just if you're not ready to do that, just like wearing a funny vegan shirt. And then people might come up to you and talk to you.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, like I've done that before. Like I am okay with talking to other people, but I still want other people to come up to me. It just like opens up even more doors.
Totally.
But especially if it's a funny shirt, people want to compliment you on it and talk to you about it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
That's
but like
awesome.
like I've gone up to people at restaurants and I'll just like, usually I just like ask, like I've found that if you talk to somebody about what's currently happening in the moment, that's usually the best way, instead of going up with like a line or something like that. Just asking them like, hey, like if you see someone at a restaurant, like, hey, have you ever been here before? And if they have, then you ask them like, oh, what do you recommend? Or if they haven't, then they'll, I don't know, usually just the conversation sort of unfolds.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I love that. Well, any last words of wisdom for people on their healing journeys?
I think it was like Dr. Greger who said like, if you give the body the right conditions to heal itself, like it'll heal itself. I think he said it like, much more eloquently, but like basically that's all we're really doing is like you're just giving your body the right situation or the right environment for it to heal itself. Because your body wants to heal itself. You just have to give it the proper environment.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. I think our bodies are powerhouses that are designed to heal. And so when given the right environment, they can. And that's so beautiful. Really good. Awesome. Well, it's so great having you on. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah.
Yeah, so fun. And thanks so much to those who are listening. If you have enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more healing stories and expert interviews, please be sure to follow along and subscribe to our channel. See you guys next time.